5, 4. I'm really counting well. 3, 2, 1. Okay, that does it. That's the buzzer. That's the final bell. Welcome to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something. So, open your Bibles to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. And as you're turning there, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, tell me some things that you would say make a person passionate. Give it to me.
I think when someone shows like a strong interest in something or strong want for something,
okay,
they have like that passion behind it.
Okay, good. So someone has a strong want or interest to something.
Oh, they talk about it a lot.
They talk about it a lot.
Tell people about it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Somebody else, what's it mean to be, how do you tell when somebody's passionate about something?
We said like one step short of obsessed.
One step short of obsessed. Ah, okay, all right. I can get on board with that. Good. It consumes their thoughts. Somebody else. Somebody else. Jared.
When someone sets aside time.
Ah, yeah. When someone sacrifices their time to do something, that probably communicates they care about something. All right. So, who can remind me? We'll tuck that away in the memory banks. We'll get back to it in a second. Who can remind me what it is that we've been talking about? We took a couple weeks off there. We had a gospel night last week, and the week before was junior high teaching. So what's the series that we've been going through? What do you guys remember? Goals. Goals. Okay. Telemundo. All right. We're talking about goals. We're talking about goals. So the last couple weeks, let me refresh you a little bit. We talked the first week about making goals. So we said there were some things that we should do when we're making goals. Namely, consult others. We should be very specific so we don't like set margins too wide and then, somewhere land in there and then kind of consider whatever. We want to consider the past. We want to remember what worked, what didn't work, and then ultimately, which is why it was last on the list, not because it was the least important, we want to consult God when we're making our goals. Then we said for keeping goals, we want to practice diligence when things are easy. In other words, when it's easy for me to just sit and relax and think, oh, I've got time later. We should instead think, let me turn off Netflix and get back to what I'm doing. Let me be diligent when things are easy, when I've got downtime. Practice patience when things are hard. Keep our nose to the grindstone. Practice dependence always. What are we dependent on? Somebody help me. God is the easy answer. What are we dependent on? Jesus. Also God. The Bible, okay. Give me some more. What are we dependent on? Food, yes. The bread of life, right? The bread of life.
Oxygen.
Yeah, we talked about those things. We said we were dependent on these things. We want to be dependent upon God's grace. We want to walk with Him. We want to be with Him. So that's where we were. Tonight we're going to talk about why make goals. Why? Because maybe you've walked through these last couple, the months since we got started with this series, and said, I'd like to, but why? Why? Let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter 9. We're going to look at a familiar passage here. So look with me at chapter 9, verse 24. And you'll remember this passage instantly, okay? Verse 24 says, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we, that is Christians, running this walk of life with Christ, we do it to receive an imperishable wreath. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified." I said through verse 27. There is no verse. Oh, there's verse 27. That was verse 26. Anyway, here's the deal, right? We're going to make some goals. Why do we make them? Number one, my relationship with Christ is in progress. My relationship with Christ is in progress. What might I mean by that?
It's always like building upon it. It's a work in progress.
Okay, it's a work in progress. You're always building on it. Give me some more. You're always getting closer to Him. I like it.
You're never going to be complete, so you have to keep working.
Okay, there's a good point. So, there's this character that I like. His name is Spider-Man. You may have heard of him. Right? Spider-Man has many faces. Okay, he's many faces. So we got like 1962 Spider-Man over here. Actually, it's probably a little later, but started in 1962. Then we got like the 90s Spider-Man, which was what I knew probably the best. But Spider-Man has a lot of different faces, a lot of different incarnations. So just a few of them, by the way, in the comic book line are The Amazing Spider-Man, The Astonishing Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2099, and etc. There's a whole bunch more, okay? But these are 2 examples. He also changes his costume on occasion. I actually have this special issue. It's giant-sized at 100th issue. And then he, at one point, had like the same symbiote that Venom had, a piece of it became like the Black Spider-Man. Then we've got Spider-Man 2099, Alternate Universe, Ultimate Spider-Man, all right? And then we've got things like Ultimate Avenging Spider-Man, and even the Scarlet Spider, which if you're a true fan of Spider-Man, you know what the Scarlet Spider is, right? So, is that your no? Yeah. Anyway, I used to really like comic books and stuff. And actually, there's apparently like a new Scarlet Spider now, although he's like an edgy Scarlet Spider. I Googled Scarlet Spider looking for this particular image, and I found like this new Scarlet Spider who's like, it said, the tagline was something like, the same spider, none of the limitations or none of the rules or something. He's like an edgy Spider-Man or something. But anyway, there's lots of faces to Spider-Man. There's lots of faces to Spider-Man. And then you've got like different adaptations for the film too, right? So we've got Tobey Maguire. I know this is like Civil War because some of us really like Tobey Maguire, and some of us really like Andrew Garfield. Burn Tobey Maguire! Kill him! Throw stones at him. And then this is, what's his name?
Andrew Garfield!
No, on the right, it's Tom Holland. Tom Holland is the upcoming Spider-Man. This guy is not in yet, but he is the newly cast Spider-Man.
The next one's going to be 12 years old.
He's going to be in Civil War. He's going to be in Civil War as Spider-Man. So anyway, there's lots of film adaptations of Spider-Man too. Now here's the deal, right? Stay with me now. Bring it back to me. I love Spider-Man. I could talk about Spider-Man all night. The key components of Spider-Man's identity still remain the same, regardless of like how his face changes, his like costume changes. The same elements are still the same, right? Like he's a wisecracking web slinger. He's a teenager usually. Sometimes he's a little older. He's usually disliked by his peers, although every once in a while he becomes popular. Like Ultimate Spider-Man, he was like a popular kid, which is kind of weird. He's usually a nerdy kid, and usually he's chasing Mary J. Watson, although sometimes he's chasing, Gwen. But anyway, the key components of Spider-Man's identity remain the same. So as Christians now, let me turn the page a little bit, because this is like a really great analogy and a really terrible analogy. Because as Christians, like, we're not constantly rebooting or restarting or reinterpreting our origin story. Okay, that remains constant. We don't necessarily go back and start over again. Our identity in Christ remains constant, even though it's progressing. Like, I'm always loved, I'm always redeemed by Christ, I'm always sanctified, I'm always His child. Okay, those things don't change. However, like Spider-Man, we are still developing in character. We're still developing in character. The redemptive work of Christ is finished, but we are not finished. So you guys said, like, it's in progress. You're always adding to it. Annie, you said it's never completed, right? And that's what Paul gets at in Philippians chapter 1 when he says, I'm sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. When is the day of Jesus Christ? Like, was that yesterday? No. Yeah, okay. Not yesterday. Is it like a Tuesday or? No. That's not coming yet. It's not coming yet. It will be in the future when he returns. That's the moment that the work that he began on us will be completed. The day that we meet him, essentially, is when we'll be complete in him. And Paul, he goes on to say, it's right for me to feel this way about you all believers, because I hold you in my heart. You are all partakers with me of grace. We're all in the same boat. None of us is better than another. None of us is worse than another. We're all progressing on this path. Christ is constantly working in us. So ultimately, it's not necessarily my identity that even matters. Okay, it's not even my personality that even matters. It's Christ in me that matters ultimately. All right, so a lot of times we get caught up on individuality and stuff. Like our world is big on individuality. Like, you believe what you want to believe, and I believe what I want to believe, and we're all cool, right? We're all cool. Even though like what I believe is absolutely conflicts with your belief, absolutely conflicts with anything. But we're big on, like, you can do what you want to do. Be your own person. Don't let anybody change you. And so to a degree, it's important that we do maintain a sense of identity and individuality. And God made us each beautifully unique, like everybody else. But the most important part of this is that it's not actually my identity that is the most important thing. It's Christ in me. The identity of becoming more like Christ that is the most important thing. That's what we want to focus on. So my identity, my relationship with Christ, is in progress. So therefore, the goals that I set for myself demonstrate that I know I still have work to do. Does that make sense? So I'm making goals. Why am I making goals? Because my relationship with Christ is in progress, and I recognize that I still have work to do. So I make goals for myself. All right, that's number one. Number two, God values dedication. God values dedication. Look at verse 26 of chapter 9 of 1 Corinthians again. He says, "So I do not run aimlessly, and I do not box as one beating the air." He's saying I exercise with purpose. I don't just like go out and do some jumping jacks and run in a circle and then go back inside and play Xbox. Okay, there's a routine that I'm working with. I'm specifically being diligent and managing my body so that I can run this race with excellence. So here's the question: is there something that you are so devoted to in this way, so dedicated to, that you're willing to give it up? That you're willing to give up everything else to get or to keep that thing? I'll say that again. Is there something that you are so devoted to that you are willing to give up everything else in order to get or to keep it? Is there something? I know a guy, I know a story about a guy who was dedicated to getting something. So he was driving his truck. He's an old farmer. Always old farmers in my stories. Anyway, he's driving his probably old Ford beaten up truck. He's driving down the road, and he's thinking about, my wife's birthday is coming up. So I got to get her something really nice, something really special, something unique that I've never gotten her before. And he's driving, he's thinking, and he happens to go by a sign that says, "Experience the thrill of flying." So you could pay to go up in a plane and experience the thrill of flying. He thought, that would be unique. My wife has never flown in a plane before. That would be really cool. Let me do that as her birthday present. So he goes and he collects his wife, and they go to this airstrip. And he goes and he meets the pilot, and he's talking to him, and he finds out that it's really expensive. It's really expensive. And so he starts to haggle with the pilot, will you take this? And no, we won't do that. I gotta get some money for this. And so they go back and forth for a while, and finally, the pilot is just firm. He's not budging on his price. But finally he says, "Listen, I will give you a discounted rate if on one condition." The guy's like, okay, what is it? He says, "I'll take you up on a discounted price if you don't make a peep the entire flight. You don't say anything. You don't make a sound. You don't speak. You don't cry out in fear or excitement. Nothing. I don't want to hear a sound. And I'll give you a discount." And so the farmer looks at his wife and he says, "I think we can do that. So they're like, "Okay, let's go up." So the pilot, being kind of like this smug flying ace kind of guy, is like, "Oh man, I'm gonna take these guys for a ride, right?" So he gets in the plane. They get in the back, and they take off. And immediately, he's doing barrel rolls and corkscrews and flying upside down and all that. He's just giving it everything he's got, opening up the throttle and just going. And they don't make any sound back there. And he's just like, man, these guys are really dedicated. And so he's like, okay, here we go, we're going around. And he just takes them out, just for a ride, right? Just crazy flying to the extent of his abilities. Finally, it's at the end of the ride, he's like, I give up. So he brings the plane in, and as he's bringing it in for a landing, he turns and he goes, "Man," he's like, you guys are amazing. I can't believe you didn't say anything." And the farmer's like, "Oh man," he's like, "You almost got me. My wife fell out back there, but I held on." So sometimes you can be dedicated to stupid things. Okay, Anyway, here's the question again, though: is there something that you're so devoted to that you're willing to give up everything else to get it or to keep it? Is there something like a lower price for a flight, for a birthday present? Is there something you're so devoted to that you're willing to give up everything else to get or to keep it? Now here's the thing, right? And I want to cut to the heart of this, because we have a lot of things we care about, right? We have a lot of pastimes that we like. We have a lot of passions. We have a lot of hobbies that we invest lots of time in. Can I just tell you that if that's something that you're devoted to, above all else, is not your relationship with Jesus Christ, that's a deep problem, guys. That's a deep problem. It means that your priorities are skewed. Your life is essentially upside down. You're not living for Christ, you're living for yourself. And that's not the way the equation of the Bible works. As a matter of fact, this is what Jesus said. He said that the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up, and then in his joy he went and sold everything that he had and bought the field. And again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls, who, on finding one pearl of great value, went and sold all that he had and bought it. I'm convinced that that's not the way we love Jesus Christ. I speak for myself, and I speak looking around at the room at you guys too. We don't love Jesus that way. We are not necessarily willing to give up everything to get him. We have things that we value. And ironically, the truth is not that we want something more than God, it's that we settle for far less. It's that we settle for far less. I'm more content with my relationships, and I'm more content with my physical things, my possessions, and I'm more content with my life and the things that I want to pursue. I settle for those things. I'm not looking for more than God. I settle for those things. This should be where my value is. This should be where my value is. I should be willing to give up everything for the sake of gaining Christ. So, God values dedication. Okay? God values dedication. That means that our Christian living requires focus, requires purpose, it requires us to be intentional. And to do that, we can't just keep walking through the same old routine. As a matter of fact, I think that routine can be dangerous. I think that routine can be dangerous. Why might I say that? What do you guys think about that? Why might routine be dangerous?
If something goes wrong, you don't know what to do.
Ah, yeah. If I'm used to just kind of going through this and cruising, and something goes wrong, now I'm in panic mode because I don't know how to handle the situation. Good. Give me some more.
You make ruts so that you can just follow it.
Okay. Make ruts in the past, so I like the car drives itself at that point. It's just going back to that same place. Don't need to steer. Give me some more. Yeah, man.
Speaking from personal experience, my whole life was a routine, and I wasn't saved the whole time because it was just a routine for me until I was confronted with the gospel. Actually had to make a decision for myself.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Life itself, the entirety of it can be a routine. Anybody else?
You forget why you're doing something.
Yeah. There's no conscious effort into it. It's not fresh. It's old. Here's the deal, right? Sometimes, and I'm not killing routine, right? Because it's good to have a way you function well. That okay, this is my system. I get up in the morning, I brush my teeth, make the coffee, usually in that order, and then get my clothes on, go out the door. You have a system and order. It works well. You've got a method. So methodology is not bad, but routine, when we get into it in that unconscious way, and we're just flying on autopilot. That is not the kind of dedicated and intentional Christian living that amounts to the kind of dedication that God values. I speak that. I'm a hypocrite because that's what I do. I have my routine. I run on autopilot. I do these things, but to break up that crust and actually think about the things that I'm doing. Remember to wake up and be satisfied with Christ's likeness, like Psalm 52 says. I want to wake up and be satisfied with his likeness. To actually think about those things and focus on them is a way that I begin to have the kind of dedication, the day-to-day focus that God desires from me. So there's a great quote that I found from a Bible commentary. This author said, "To achieve that kind of dedication, Paul would not let his body master him." And back in 1 Corinthians 6, he talks about how all things are lawful for me, but I'm not going to be controlled by any of those things. So he's not going to let anything master his body, or his body master him, excuse me. So sometimes he denied even the body's demand for rightful privileges and pleasures for a greater good. Let me say that again. To achieve this kind of dedication, Paul would not let his own body master him. He sometimes denied even its demand for rightful privileges and pleasures for a greater good. There's a principle of being controlling yourself. The Titus 2 talks all about self-control. Every aspect of a Christian's life should fall under the realm of self-control. Whether it's my speech, whether it's my thought, whether it's my action, I should be self-controlled. Now, does that mean that we deliberately harm our bodies, to master our bodies in order to be subject and dedicated? Does that mean that we deliberately harm ourselves? Answer: no. Okay, no. Whether it's an eating thing, I don't starve myself. I don't I don't hurt myself. I don't cut my body. I don't do anything of that nature to show dedication. That's actually a lot of what the pagan cultures of Israel at times would do to show dedication. That's not what we're talking about here. However, do we need to be able to learn to master our desires and say no to what our heart tells us to do? Answer: yes. Okay, that's the distinction here. When I say I want to master my body, I want to master my thoughts. I want to be able to master the ability to say no to something that I'm tempted by. I want to master the ability to say no to something that I'm tempted by. So, my walk with Christ must involve routine things. Okay, must involve quiet time, acts of service, regular church and youth group attendance, things of that nature. But it can't be limited to those things. Does that make sense? There are routine things that are good. We want to practice methodology, but we want to do it with focus and being intentional. You guys with me on that? Okay. So here's what I want to say, right? If God values dedication, then that means that the goals that I set demonstrate my commitment to Christ. Okay? God values dedication, so the goals that I set demonstrate my commitment to Christ. He alone is my pursuit. Right, so last point. We're going to be done, guys. Love for God demonstrates commitment. Love for God demonstrates commitment. Let's look back at the chapter again. And actually, what we're going to do is look back a little further than we did before. So turn back to verse 15. Let me find it myself. Verse 15. Halfway through that verse, he says, I would rather die than have anyone deprive me of my ground for boasting. Verse 16. For if I preach the gospel, that gives me no ground for boasting. For necessity is laid on me. Woe to me if I do not preach the gospel. He's talking about how the only thing that I want to boast in is Christ. And so even if I'm doing this out of necessity, and then he goes on to say, verse 17, I do this because I'm entrusted with a stewardship. Verse 18, what then is my reward? That in preaching I may present the gospel free of charge. And I look down at verse 23. He says, I do all things for the sake of the gospel, that I may share with them in its blessing. When we talk about making goals, we recognize that our love for Christ demonstrates commitment, so we make goals out of them. What are some components that you would say? Are part of genuine love for Christ? What does that look like? So we talked about being passionate earlier. Let's kind of bring some of those things back into that. What are some components of genuine love for Christ? Shout some of those things out to me. Good. Give me some more. Love for others. Okay. So there's a horizontal aspect to this as well. One anothering. Give me some more. Obedience. Going right to the heart of it there. Obedience. Give me some more. Other components of love for Christ. If you love Christ, what are you going to do? Okay, I'm going to be humble. I'm going to submit to Him. I'm going to put His will above mine. Anything else? Share the gospel. Yeah. I'm going to. If this is so important to me, why would I hold it to myself? I want to share that. I want to extend that out to other people. Anna, you said if you love something, you got to talk about it, right? So if I love Christ, I'm going to talk about Christ. That's just such a key indicator. Anybody else? Components of genuine love. Yeah, shout it.
You're going to hate sin.
I'm going to hate sin. I wish that I was there. I'm losing the exact quote. It's a theologian who said that until sin be bitter, Christ will not be sweet. And he turns it around too. So Christ needs to be sweet for sin to be bitter. You know, my love for Christ should replace my flesh's desire to sin. Okay, my desire for sin should weaken as I desire Christ more. It's kind of like this inverse relationship. These are all components of genuine love for Christ. Vibrant, passionate love for God is a love so consuming that I can't help but talk about Jesus. I can't help but demonstrate Jesus to other people. Look at verse 19 again. Or not again. We didn't look at that one yet. Verse 19. For though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. There's devotion to reaching out to other people. And then verse 23 again, he says, I do it all for the sake of the gospel. Like that's such a core principle of what he is and what he does. Because he loves Jesus so much, he can't help but demonstrate it to other people. So vibrant passion is key to this. Also devoted obedience. And so we talked a little bit about sin already, but devoted obedience is the kind of obedience that grinds on the brakes in the moment of temptation. It's so hard to do it because we don't want to, and that's really the thing. And again, when we operate on routine, my default when I come to somewhere where I struggle is to fall right back into that temptation again and not do anything about it. And then I'll think about it afterwards and feel bad about it and repent independent of it. And like that's kind of the thing we do when we're in routine. But if we are truly passionate about Christ, then we're gonna do everything that we possibly can to learn how to step on the brakes the moment that we see that temptation coming. So there's a passage in 1 Peter, I think I referenced this to you guys a couple weeks ago, where it talks about how we are slaves to the things that overcome us. We're slaves to the things that overcome us. We're slaves to our passions, okay? So when it comes to temptation, bringing that principle into it, if I'm a slave to my desire and my passion, then my passion to do what is wrong is going to drive me to keep doing that thing. Does that make sense? If all I care about is what I feel, what my heart tells me to do, then I'm gonna sin every time, because what feels right is to do this. What feels like what I want to do is to sin. I'm a slave to that. As a matter of fact, do you guys know how they trap monkeys in Brazil? How do they do it, Hudson?
They'll have like a banana or an orange in this box.
Yeah.
And the box is there's a hole in the box, and it's small enough for the monkey to put his hand in. But when he grabs the fruit, it's not big enough for him to pull it out. Like, he'll get trapped in there because he wants to do so bad.
Yeah. Well, so the context is that these monkeys destroy crops. They eat so the farmers have to do something. And this is actually a really humane way to trap a monkey, because they, like Hudson said, they put the fruit in the box, they reach in, their hand can fit in, but once they're grabbing something, the hole is too small for them to get out. And these monkeys will literally not let go of the fruit. They'll sit there and pull and just be stuck with their hand in the box. They can't they want that fruit so bad, they'll get stuck there. And it's humane, because then they release them elsewhere. They don't always kill them. I hope they don't always kill them. But anyway, for you animal lovers out there, that's what I hope they do. I can't verify that, but guys, that's what we're like with sin. That's what we're like with our sinful desires, because I want this thing so bad, even if I'm not consciously thinking that, I want this and I'm not willing to let go of it. If you find yourself somewhere where you struggle and you are repeatedly falling into that, maybe your desire is not to commit to that act, but there's another desire that's driving you to do that, and you're stuck there because you don't want to give that thing up. So, for example, maybe you have a really rough relationship with your mom or dad. Okay, maybe you fight with mom and dad all the time, and maybe you don't want to fight with mom and dad, but maybe you feel like mom and dad are unfair to you. And you're not willing to let that notion go, honestly, and maybe it's true. Maybe they are unfair with you. You're a monkey with your hand in the thing because you don't want to let go of the sense of it being unfair. All right. Maybe you don't want to fight with mom and dad, so you're not saying, "Let me fight with mom and dad and grab this fruit," but you're saying it's unfair for mom and dad to talk to me this way, and so you won't let go of that. Does that make sense? You guys with me on that? That's what we're like if we aren't willing to be obedient to Christ in the way that says, "I desire to glorify you and be closer to you than I do to get what I feel is the right thing to me." Does that make sense? You guys with me on that? All right. Devoted obedience. We don't want to be like trapped monkeys, okay? My God should be greater than my sinful desire because he's more powerful than it and he's worth more than it. God is greater than my sinful desire because he's more powerful than it is and he's worth more than it is. Okay? Last thing is regular confession and repentance. That's the last component of genuine love. To summarize, there's lots more things we can talk about, but I want to have a vibrant passion for God. I want to be devoted in my obedience to him. And I want to practice confession and repentance. Okay? Because here's the thing. We're going to fall. We're going to make mistakes. We're still in progress. Okay? We're still working towards this, so we're not perfect yet. So I need to be regularly confessing my sins and regularly repenting of them. That's a component, because when I fail, I need to be grieved by my sin. I need to understand that this is something that violates my relationship with God in a very tangible way, and it keeps me from growing closer to him. I need to get those things out. All right. So dedicated love for God. That's why I want to make goals. My love should demonstrate my commitment to him. So the goals that I set should demonstrate how passionate I am for him. Okay. That's why we want to make goals, right? Our relationship with Christ is in progress. So our dedication to set objectives for ourselves reveals that we have work to do. I'm in progress. I gotta keep working. I make goals because God values my dedication, and so if I recognize a specific area that I'm weak in, then I want to set a goal. And I want to reach that goal. I want to stick to that. And when I fail, I want to ask forgiveness and continue to pursue that and be dedicated to it. And I do all that because I love God. I love him. I'm passionate about him, and so I'm focused, and I want to pursue Him with everything that's in me. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to pray, and then we're going to head downstairs, and I believe there's cake for the birthdays tonight. There's cake for the birthdays tonight. So grab